But obviously it'll be a great experience for Ben to see where his game is at and how it shapes up against someone who is such a high level like Cam is.
Yeah, we've already been treated to two superb matches today outside before the rain came in. We're underway now. Cam Norrie serving, of course, left-hander. That will give him certain advantages, particularly from that left-hand court. And no line judges here. It's all on the poor old umpire.
And no pressure.
To get those line calls right. And it's slightly tricky for us to tell sometimes as well, because we can't hear the umpire particularly, so we might not always call it for you, but we'll do our best. Yeah, Cam had a fantastic time here at the indoor, the Battle of the Brits, which was organised by Jamie Murray, hugely successful for all sorts of reasons. It got tennis back on the telly. It got competitive tennis, although it was really an exhibition event, wasn't it? But it was very competitive.
I think it's quite nice for the audience to be able to feel like they interacted a little bit more with the players as well. You know, it's not often we get to hear what they're thinking at the change of ends and what their coaches are talking to them about. So I think it was probably quite nice from that perspective. But back to business now, no coaches on court or anything like that.
No, as someone who's played on the women's tour, where you obviously can have coaches, certainly coming in at change of ends, what's your overriding thinking about that having the value of a coach? Or should it, as I was talking in the previous match to Abigail about actually, should it be down to the player to work things out for themselves once they're out there playing matches?
You do think it's probably a little bit of both, I think. Obviously it's nice to be able to have that someone else to lean on and bounce ideas off of, and if you're doing something obviously wrong, then they're able to come on court and to really help you out. But again, tennis is an individual sport, so ultimately, you know, maybe it should be down to the player on court to figure out all of these things, and if they can't do that, because obviously at Grand Slams they don't have the luxury of having a coach on court, so you know, should it be allowed on the WTA Tour when it's not on the Grand Slam? It's one of those where they both have their pros and cons.
Yes, indeed. From the viewer's point of view, though, it is fascinating to hear the chat between player and coach, isn't it? So there's an entertainment element in a way.
Especially when there's a few arguments and disagreements, when the player's just not listening to the coach in the slightest.
Yes, we've seen a lot of that, haven't we? No names mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not going to grass anyone up there.
So we're having got a bit of difficulty just getting the score up on the screen for you at the moment. But yeah, Cam Norrie came through to play in that third place match in the Battle of the Brits, should have been up against Andy, but of course Andy decided he would pull out because of a little bit of discomfort in his hip. Played against James Ward, who acquitted himself extremely well.
There's such a high level of depth in the men's tennis at the moment, and you know, it was an amazing level from all of the guys, and I think probably they were all maybe slightly surprised at how well everyone was playing, but it was incredible to watch and really nice to see.
Oh, that's a super bit of play there from Ben Jones, although Cam will feel he could have done a little bit better with that shot at the net. I'm sure Ben Jones will be feeling a little bit of nerves, even though this is a behind closed doors event. He'll want to acquit himself well here against a player who's obviously a fair way above him in the rankings.
You think that maybe the fact that it is behind closed doors might help him a little bit against someone you would have thought he's never played probably against someone this level before, so you know, not having the crowds there probably is to his advantage. Yeah,
interesting point. I wonder if in many ways Cam, who's now used to the glitzy life of playing in front of huge crowds, whether it might perhaps affect Cam a little bit that he hasn't got the crowds there. I don't know.
Potentially. I think, you know, when you do get used to having those crowds, you're there from the start of the match and you're kind of ready to go. Where obviously he's playing a younger opponent, you know, slightly lower ranked, and trying to find that motivation. But Cam's pretty professional, so he's going to take this one very seriously.
Just overcooked that one, I think, did he? No, it was in. So first game, goes the way of Cam Norrie. Hitting the balls beautifully here. How different is this indoor surface? You obviously train here a lot, Anna, from the outdoor surfaces that we had been playing on earlier in the day before the rains came.
For me, the outdoor surfaces here are a little bit slower. So you would have thought maybe that probably would have favoured Cam. I think he quite likes the slow court. You know, his favourite surface is the clay. So maybe moving indoors will, you know, probably favour Ben a little bit more. You know, he's a big guy, big serve, big ground strokes, but also the fact that Cam had experience of playing at Battle of the Brits, and he's obviously trained here so many times. So you know, it's not going to be too much of a hindrance to him. He'll be fine.
Ben likes the grass, I understand.
As do all Brits.
Of course. Jones studying at the University of Bath, where he's coached by Ian MacDonald. Ring any bells, Anna? Ian MacDonald?
The name sounds familiar. Yeah, he was my coach for quite a number of years, so I know Ian MacDonald very well.
How will he have prepared Ben for this event and this match in particular?
I mean, I think, you know, it's going to be tough in terms of Cam's obviously the favourite and Ben's not expected to, you know, do well, but he'll have set him out with clear targets and clear goals of what he wants him to try and do throughout the match, and also probably just enjoy the experience, because it's not that often at his level that he gets to play someone who's top 100, and it'll be a good test of where his game is at compared to Cam's and what he needs to be able to do and what he needs to improve. So, you know, I think he'll have probably told him to go out there and enjoy it, but not enjoy it too much and try to win.
Well, he played an unorthodox point there to stay in the rally, and came away with the point.
He's got a big serve on him, though. He's a tall guy, 6'5", I believe.
Yeah, I've noticed that almost everyone has said they're 6'5". Looking through some of the bios today, some of them I would disagree with.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think Paul Jubb's 6'5".
No,
well,
that was the one I was.
That was the one that stood out to me as well.
We might have to have a word with him. Do you think he's upping his stats a bit?
Yeah, might have bribed someone on the stats team to.
Cam Norrie is there somewhere.
A bit like AD in the last match, you couldn't see him behind the camera.
Oh, that's a little wild. What should he be doing in those situations? I mean, he's pulling the trigger a little early, perhaps, is he, Ben?
Yeah, just a touch. I think, you know, especially in my experience, when I've played higher ranked players, you feel like you have to go for more, have to go for closer to the lines and kind of play more red line tennis, whereas actually you don't. You just have to be smart about what you do and still play your brand of tennis. But in that moment in time, it's very hard to kind of see that logical, rational side. So I think once he works his way into it a bit, he'll understand what he needs to do. But again, it's just another thing showing him what he needs to improve on over the long term.
I mean, how much can he play his own game here?
The good question. I suppose it depends a little bit on Cam's style as well, because Cam is, you wouldn't say he's the most aggressive player. You know, he's very happy to be very solid from the baseline and make a lot of balls, and then once he does get the opportunity, look to move forward. So he's not going to hit Jones off the court. So that kind of will give him a little bit of time to get into the match and find his rhythm, hopefully. So, you know, I think he will get given chances, and especially with the serve that he's got, he is going to win a few cheap points and be able to come forward.
Just out from Jones. Probably did the right thing though, coming in there.
Yeah, it was 100% the right point. But again, it's just those little things where, because you're playing someone who's so much higher ranked than you tend to go for those lines a little bit more, whereas you can guarantee if he was playing someone similar ranking, you know, he'd be happy with getting that volley cross court and then being ready for another one.
So Norrie with the break back. Ball's coming back down his end. Oh, nicely put away. And you could see on that first serve, he's really looking to put it wide. Why do left-handers have so much of an advantage on the left-hand court than a right-hander serving from the right-hand court would have?
If only I knew the answer, I'd be a millionaire. Do you know, I actually really don't know, because you would think that we right-handers would have the same advantage, obviously, on the deuce side,
yeah.
But there seems to be some spin that left-handers get that gets the right-handed player even more out of the court than we seem to with them on the ad side. So I'm not sure what their trick is. I think we might have to ask Cam for
yeah.
what his secrets are.
I think we should. Yep, he made that look a little more straightforward on that occasion. A hole to love for Norrie, taking him 2-1 to the good. And as I say, this is day 2 of week 2 of the LTA British Tour here. And a great opportunity for these players to, at last, have some proper competitive action. We had a bit of a delay for rain while we moved indoors, and I have to congratulate our technical crew for getting the cameras off the open air courts and indoors to the indoor courts using the same cameras, and we're up and running again well within an hour, so hats off to them. Would the players rather have carried on outside? I mean, the lucky thing was that it happened in between matches just. Paul Jubb was on match point, wasn't he, when it happened? They had a brief break, but do you think these guys would rather be playing this outside, as it's predominantly meant to be an outdoor event?
Yeah, of course they would like to ideally play outside, but I think a lot of the guys do like indoor tennis as well. So I don't think it is too much difference. And I think for the fact that there's so much uncertainty about the weather, especially today, that you know, it's better to just get continuous play for the rest of the day. But I'm sure they would be happy either way.
Yeah, it's great just to be playing, isn't it? So here's Jones. 1-2. Oh, what a shame. And I'm almost wondering whether he needed to play it, but even if he didn't, he should have really put that one away, shouldn't he, Anna?
Yeah, he probably should have hit a winner off that one. But again, it's a good point, but it just comes back to the same thing where he's probably trying to do a little bit too much when just hitting that cross-court volley would have won him the point. But, you know, he's trying to do the right things, which is a positive out here. He seems to have a clear head of ideas and tactics that he wants to use. Got really far behind his head ball toss as well. I'm surprised he hasn't got a bad back.
Maybe he has. Oh dear. That's a couple of free points for Cam Norrie. And that's a shame because the Jones serve is certainly a strength. He just needs to make sure that he can get the rhythm going on his serve.
Yeah, he just looks like he's going for a little bit too much on those second serves, and I understand his game style is to be aggressive, but especially at the start of the match when you're not necessarily feeling totally comfortable, I think it's important to try and play yourself into it, and so he's not really giving himself too many chances out there.
Oh, that's a well-played point. He mixed it up a little bit with that backhand from the baseline rather than driving it back. Just a bit of touch play and forcing Cam Norrie in and pushing the ball long. And he's just give him a little bit of much-needed confidence at this stage, Ben Jones.
I think especially against someone like Cameron, you're kind of not going to get too many free points, so you've got to be very solid from the baseline, and you do have to be aggressive as well, because Cameron is so solid that he's happy to out-rally you, so he's got to find that blend between being aggressive but also being a little bit, you know, careful and giving himself margins, but Cameron's all over him at the moment.
So game Norrie, 3-1 now. Oh, that's well, I mean, that dipped uncomfortably for Norrie. Was that a deliberate ploy by Ben Jones? Because it was beautifully played if it was.
I do believe it was. I think that was pretty much the only shot that he could hit to stay in that point, and Cam's not necessarily the most comfortable up at the net, but it still had to be that good to win the point.
Yeah, that's the problem. If you do bring Norrie in and you've left yourself a little bit exposed when you're so far out of position.
Yeah, I think Ben was just a little bit too passive on that point. He let Cam dictate from the baseline, and when you do that, Cam's not going to let up, and finished it nicely with that backhand volley. Ooh, tight call.
Oh, there you go. That's the lefty specialist, isn't it?
That infamous lefty serve. If I wish that I had it.
Again, apologies for the lack of on-screen scoring. So 4-1 to Norrie, and we'll try and keep you abreast of the score. I've rather failed to do that, for which apologies. But yeah, Norrie moving quite comfortably in this, and you think, from Ben's point of view, Anna, he just needs to try and settle down a little bit?
A little bit. I think after that first game where you kind of think that Cam gave him that first game a little bit, it's kind of just gone pretty quick. It doesn't seem that he's getting in too many of these rallies, giving away too many cheap points, you know. He needs to try to find some way that he's going to be able to hurt Cam, but at the moment it's all on Cam's racket. You know, he's dictating all of these points, and Ben doesn't really have too many weapons apart from that first serve that can hurt him.
Yeah, if he can get that first serve going again, it let him down a little bit in his previous service game. Maybe he can do a little bit of damage here. So it's Jones to serve at 1-4 in this first set. Was that a double?
Yeah, it was quite a big double as well.
Oh dear.
I think he's going to have to try and rein in those second serves soon, otherwise these games are going to go pretty quick.
So love 15, 1-4. Well, I wonder if Jones could have done a little bit more with that backhand and maybe played it a bit wider, made it harder for Norrie.
Yeah, I think that's probably just the obvious difference between the two of them. You've seen when Cameron's had his approach shots, he's done a lot more with the ball and at least got some width or a bit more depth on it, whereas Ben's backhand sort of plopped up into the middle of the court and gave Cam an easy passing shot and just dipped it to his feet and then hit that forehand down the line.
Well, nice idea, but just the execution wasn't right. It was a bit signalled probably and a little bit balloony.
Yeah, a little bit. But again, you know, Cameron's dipping it at his feet, and I don't really know what more you can do with those kind of things. But I think he just looks bereft of ideas as to really what he's trying to do out there and how he can hurt Cameron.
Love 40. Oh, that's super play, but it's not out of play yet. Norrie is running his socks off. Well played, Ben Jones. Did he play that point as you would like him to play it? Did he miss a chance of closing it out a little sooner, perhaps, by maybe coming in a couple of shots earlier?
No, I think he played that point pretty well. I think the slightly concerning thing on his part would be that he has to play a point that well to just win a point. but no, I think he found the right balance between controlled aggression and still, you know, being aggressive. So that's going to have to be something that he really looks to do and tries to replicate point by point.
No, well done. Wrong footing the opponent. Going to play the ball behind him, and well, he's got a little bit more about his game now. Hopefully this will give him a bit of a boost, because if he is a little bit nervous, it's terribly difficult to swing cleanly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to get the legs moving as well. Those are the kind of the two things that really are hard to do when you are feeling the nerves. But he looks like he's freeing up a little bit. That previous point, I think, really helped. And you know, if there's some way that he can hold on to his service game here, I think that'll be huge for the rest of this set and the rest of the match.
So couldn't quite go the distance on his service game. Norrie takes that one again and breaks for 5-1. As you say, Anna, maybe something for him, Ben Jones, to latch onto in that previous game.
He needs something to latch onto, because unfortunately Cameron's just not giving him anything. He's not, you know, giving me any free points from the baseline. He's moving forward when he needs to. So, you know, he's going to have to latch onto anything he can get.
Running around the backhand, and he knows he could have played that one a little better. Where's he going here? Wide?
You would put 10 quid on it, wouldn't you? I think it's just a lefty's bread and butter. It just makes sense. It opens up the court, and then Cameron can either use that backhand or forehand to just hit into the space and then really be in charge of the point every time. It's, you know, it's a no-brainer for him.
No. Well then, what do you make of that?
I mean, I just wish that I had that serve. But no, the thing with Cam is that he's got the same ball toss for pretty much every serve, so it's so hard to read what he's going to do. And you know, obviously when, you know, 80% of the time he's sliding it down the tee, then he has the luxury of being able to slide it out wide.
So 3 sets of points for Norrie. Takes it at the first attempt, and that is a pretty convincing opening set for the number 1 seed here, and he'll be happy enough with that.
Yeah, minus that first game, I think he'll be very happy with the way he played. I think he is looking to do exactly what he needs to do out there. He's playing very within himself, very controlled, and he looks to be very much in control of this match. And the onus is on Ben to try and find different ways that he can, you know, get at Cameron and try and change things up a bit, because at the moment it's going to be an uphill battle to you know, even get games on the scoreboard at the moment.
And this is a point actually at this level where it would be quite useful to have a coach just to come and just settle you down and say a couple of things. I wonder what Ian Carmichael would be. Ian McDonald. Who's Ian Carmichael? He's a very old actor.
Okay.
Yeah, Ian McDonald. I wonder what he would be saying to Ben if he could.
Probably that he's going to have to get a higher percentage of first serves in. You know, he's just missing far too many and putting too much pressure on his second serve. And again, going for too big on his second serve, I would think. You know, try and get into the rallies a little bit more. Try and find your rhythm. Obviously, I think the thing he's going to have to do is come forward and use his physical presence at the net. But obviously when Cameron's just so much in control of the points, it's hard to do that. So, you know, he's got to find a way to blend it, and he did especially well that point we talked about a few games ago. He found that right balance of controlled aggression, but it's too few and far between at the moment.
Yeah, if he can get that first serve firing, Jones, he stands himself in good stead. But as we were saying, if the nerves take hold, it's difficult. We've seen a couple of ball tosses go awry. So, start again. Start of the second set. Oh dear. That's a shame. He'll be disappointed with that, particularly that first volley.
You kind of, yeah, he would be disappointed, but it all stemmed from the approach shot. I think it just wasn't aggressive enough or good enough, and it gives Cameron a chance to play on every single passing shot, and Cameron is so strong with hitting passing shots and being able to hit it in places that are so awkward, so he's always getting plays on it, and once he does it, you know, the net play doesn't really stand too much of a chance.
Oh, unlucky again.
Again, I think he didn't do quite enough with that approach shot. You're giving Cameron a pretty easy forehand pass to dink it at his feet, and he's having to come up with a volley off his laces. It's hard to keep doing that point after point. So, you know, maybe he's going to have to take a few risks on the approach shots and put a little bit more on it. I know it's lower percentage, but he's going to have to try and change something up at the moment.
So love 40, 3 more break points for Cam Norrie. Well, that's a real shame from Ben Jones, because that serve could be such a potent weapon for him, but it's letting him down badly here. Yeah,
you do kind of get the sense that it's a little bit to do with the ball toss. The ball toss seems so far behind his head. It's hard to kind of get control when it's like that. So maybe that's something that him and Ian can work on. I'm sure they're probably working on it already, but you know, especially when you're nervous, that left arm and the ball toss can get a little bit
used
ropey.
To work for John McEnroe. He used to stand with his back to the court.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how he hasn't got a dodgy back after all these years. He probably does, but maybe he needs a few tips from him.
Maybe that's who he's modelling himself on. But yeah, needs a little rethink perhaps there, as Norrie serves at 1-0. Fiona Edwards in the chair, got her work cut out, calling all the lines as well, as the umpires are having to do for all these matches here, just to make sure that there are fewer people on court as possible. And I think the players are only here with one coaching member, aren't they?
That's correct. Literally having to hit that out of the side fence.
Was that a second serve?
Yeah, I think so. I'd be happy with that on my first serve.
So it's another game to love for Norrie, and Ben just needs a deep breath or two, I think, just to settle down and play some of the shots that he was playing earlier. And more importantly, in the initial stages, just get that serve working.
Yeah, I think, like you said, exactly right. I think maybe just take a deep breath, try and slow the game down a little bit. It feels like it's going very, very quickly, especially in between points, and that's hard to change the momentum when you're kind of rushing. So, you know, if he can just take a deep breath and, you know, give himself 10 seconds and try and regroup.
Yeah, I think he's running out of ideas here.
Yeah, I really think so too. I just don't think there's anything he can do to hurt him. And Cam's so good with his game as well. I think something that, you know, is kind of overlooked is that he takes a backhand so early, then takes a forehand, you know, waits for a little bit, and this, you know, the backhand's coming through so flat and so low compared to the forehand that's kicking up. You're not getting the same look at any of the balls, so, you know, he's not getting any rhythm out there. No. And Cameron's just got his number, I think. Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a lovely shot. Well done. He's back. He's on the scoreboard for the first time in a while with a beauty, because that's not an easy volley to make.
No, high backhand volleys are one of the toughest ones in the game, so he did really well there to deal with that.
So 15 all. Love to. Jones rather hoping that was good.
I think it was a let.
Oh, it's a let.
I think initially the umpire wasn't going to call it, and then Cameron gave her a glare, and she did.
Well, he doesn't need that kind of help, does he?
I don't think so.
No, that is a cracker. Oh, it's not good enough, though. Oh, I mean...
That's crazy.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've done all that hard work. He's played what, to me, looked like a winner.
The perfect point.
Yeah.
I think the one demoralising thing for him now would be he's probably hit his best first serve of the match. The ball's coming with 2 feet of the baseline. He's probably played his best volley of the match, and he's just got lobbed into the far corner, and he's still not won the point. You're kind of thinking, I really don't know what else to do here.
No, that's cruel. 15-30. Quite a few wayward ball tosses from Jones. I guess another sign of nerves, possibly. Well, he got the help of the net that time. Quite frankly, I think he deserved it.
Yeah, I think he needs all the help he can get. But going back to your point about the ball toss, I don't know. There just looks something a little bit, not quite the rhythm he's found on his serve. I don't know. It just looks a bit quick. But again, that probably does come with nerves and not breathing and just kind of wanting to get it over and done with as soon as possible.
Oh, shame. Doing all the right things until that moment, wasn't he?
Yeah, he constructed the point so well, but again, it's that final shot, feeling the pressure of having to go for something a little bit extra, especially with the way Cameron's moving. He's chasing everything down and getting every single ball back.
And it's not as if he can just sort of start trying to mix up the shots a bit, because Norrie will seize every opportunity to get in and attack it. So he's really got to think maybe a little bit outside the box, Ben Jones. I don't know.
Yeah, inside the box is not working at the moment.
30-40, great point. Oh, it's a super return from Norrie. He's being merciless out there, is Cam Norrie, the number 1 seed here, and takes a 3-love lead in this second set, leading by 1 set to love. It looks bright out through those windows, doesn't it? But I can assure you it's not that bright outside. The outdoor courts are actually covered in puddles after the rain we had earlier. What was interesting, I thought, to see in those opening matches today, Anna, outside, was the amount of serve volley that we were seeing. Especially, you say these outdoor courts are a little bit slower. But I just love it to see players playing that style of tennis. Yeah,
I was quite surprised, to be honest. You know, I didn't know that was going to happen. You know, it's such a part of the game that's, I think, underutilized. I think it's so good to be able to have that variety, and you know, things nowadays in the game is so baseline orientated that I think, you know, to be able to have that string to your bow, to be able to come forward and mix it up, I think is something that everyone needs to try and maybe incorporate in their game. But it was really nice to see, and with a lot of success as well.
That's absolutely true, and from a spectator's point of view, it makes the game a lot more interesting to watch, I think. So Norrie serving then. That's 3-love, second set, leading by a set to love. That kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Little wasted opportunity after a gift of a double fault in the previous point. Well, that is a superb shot from Jones. He got that absolutely right, got hold of it beautifully.
Yeah, great shot. I think Cam maybe bluffed it a little bit coming in on not the best approach shot, but great passing shot by Ben in the end.
Oh, he did well there, Jones. Slightly let off the hook, but let's give him the credit he deserves to that point. It was a super return, which sent Norrie wide, and then played that shot at the net just well enough to give him break point on the Norrie serve.
What are the chances he's sliding this first serve out wide?
Funny you should say that.
I know, I could have put my house on that.
Oh, it's cruel. He's still in with a chance, though, at deuce. And the Norrie serve has faltered just a little bit in this game.
Okay, that definitely wasn't in. Is that my eyesight, or
It's so difficult to tell.
are you going to sit on the fence here? I'm pretty sure that was wide.
It's been called out. No, it has
been called in.
It has been called
I'd
in.
be fuming if I was
Would you?
Ben.
I thought it might have been... Okay, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. Oh, that's a shame for Jones. And Norrie takes a 4-love lead. Maybe he was a little bit lucky. He doesn't need any luck, Anna, for goodness sake.
No, but you make your own luck, and I think he's the one who's been really trying to dominate these points and be the one who's being more aggressive. So, you know, yeah, it is a bit lucky, but at the same time, you know, he's doing something to create that luck. So Ben's got new balls here, so that first serve could potentially have a few more miles an hour on it and maybe cause some damage. He could really do with the hold here, otherwise it's going to be over in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So Ben Jones, 22 years old, serving at love 4 with new balls. I mean, that ball toss...
He's practically on the other side of the court when he hits it, isn't he?
Would that be a fault?
Do you know what? I don't know whether that... Because if your foot's behind the centre line, I think that's a football. I don't know whether it works if it's your back that's behind the line. I'm not sure how that works.
I'm not sure it's ever been considered.
No, I don't think so.
That really was quite a lean, wasn't it? So, love 15. Oh, that's a super shot from Norrie. He just took his time, banged it back, showed it no respect whatsoever.
Just uses the pace so nicely on his backhand. He's not one that massively generates his own pace, but because he takes it so early, he can just direct it and flies off the racket into the corner for a winner.
Virtually no backswing on that at all, was there?
No, it's an interesting technique, I have to say, but it's so effective.
As is that from Jones. Nice bit of serve volley working for him. $15.30. Yeah, he's getting a little bit irritated with himself for missing these first serves. Help him, Anna. Help him.
I'm not sure anything I can do or say is going to help him. I think the one thing that will probably frustrate him the most when he gets off the court is that, you know, he hasn't used his strongest weapon, which is obviously his serve. You know, he's given away far too many double faults. I dread to think what his first serve percentage is out here. It's, you know, he's making it really tough for himself.
Oh dear. Well, you're doing your best, Ben. You're trying your best, but you know, when you're playing against someone like Cam Norrie, who's beginning to make it look all too easy, that takes a 5-love lead now in this second set, and Norrie will be serving for the match at the change of ends.
I've been really impressed with Cameron's intensity in this match. You know, obviously, minus that first game, I think coming into a match like this, he's obviously the huge favourite, and rightly so, but it's easy to take your foot off the pedal a little bit and kind of go through the motions. But I've been so impressed from, minus that first game, he's really been foot on the accelerator, no letting up, and there's been come-ons, and I've been really happy to see this, and I've been very impressed with his performance today.
He's coached by Facundo Lugones, who you'd think, I would have thought, might have been more of a clay courter, but I think Cam likes the hard court, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. But I think Cam's game is suited to all different surfaces, again, because he's got this deceptively low kind of flying ball on the backhand, and also the spinny forehand. So he's kind of got the variation of both, and he moves so incredibly well. Yeah. He can translate that to a grass court, hard court, or a clay court. And as we're seeing here, there's not many balls that are getting past him.
So Norrie to serve for a place in round 2. Really, the perfect illustration of that lack of backswing we were talking about earlier. Just punching the ball through, so effective. So Norrie really making this look easy now with 3 match points. Well, that's one saved.
I think he was trying to go out on a highlights reel shot there. Didn't quite pull it off.
Oh, that's a nice way to put it away and win the match. So well on Cam Norrie, 6-1, 6-love against Ben Jones. That was a tough experience for Ben Jones, but he will come through stronger for that, and he'll have learnt a lot.
Hopefully it's a huge learning curve for him, and realise what he needs to do to ultimately reach that level. So, obviously he'll be disappointed and kind of upset that he couldn't make it a little bit more competitive, but I think it's one of those huge learning curves, and give him extra emphasis when he gets onto that practice court to really try and improve and take his game to that next level.
What, in terms of his ground play, what did you think he had there that he could work on a little bit? I mean, obviously we know the serve is good, the serve is big. What other parts of his game do you think look strong?
He obviously hits a pretty big ball because he's a big guy as well, but I just think I think his margins were far too small. I think he needs to find that mixture of aggression but not being too aggressive. It felt like he was redlining it a little bit too much, and he's got to realise that it's better to play at sort of 80% consistently than trying to play at 95%, and it's not going to happen. So I think he needs to try and find that right balance. It did look a little bit like his game pattern or game strategy was a little bit unclear. You kind of weren't sure whether he was someone who was like looking to come forward all the time or stay back, and I think he needs to just be a little bit clearer with that. But I would try and build the game around that serve. He's got a big serve when it goes in, work on that consistency, but I think that was just something that really let him down today. And he normally in matches he would just be able to rely on that serve and getting those games on the board, and then really trying to go into the server's return games, but he struggled with that today.
He did. Cam Norrie too good, so Norrie goes through to the second round. Next up, it's the number 4 seed Anton Matusevich up against George Houghton. Anna, thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the LTA British Tour return to elite competition. We're approaching the tail end of day one of the second week of events. And this tournament, part of a 4-week swing of new British Tour events that take place at the NTC this month. And it's been a dramatic day so far. 2 real corkers to open it, and might have another close match on our hands here in this one. I'm Abigail Johnson, here to guide you through it alongside my co-commentator Anna Smith, who's been putting in a full day's shift today.
No rush to the wicket.
That's the way it goes. We're happy to be back. Tennis has been much missed, and grateful to the LTA for their part in getting tennis back on the road ahead of international competition resuming. Well, in this particular match, George Halsen on your screen is taking on Anton Matusevich, who is our number 4 seed. And 3 seeds have played and 3 seeds have won so far today, so he's looking to continue the trend. 19 years old. And before coronavirus intervened, this would have been his first full year on the senior circuit, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to offer in this clash. You will notice this match is taking place indoors. We managed to get the first 2 matches of the day out of the way before the rain came down. I think we did pretty well, considering the forecast at the beginning. A quick one before this, and this one has the potential to become quite a close clash. Let's have a look at George Halsen, who just graduated from Loughborough University. He actually sat some exams online just a few weeks ago, and has been competing for Loughborough Uni in the uni tennis system. Quite a few players choosing to go to the college route, and the university route is proving quite popular at the moment. Is that something you ever considered?
I did actually consider it. I remember when I was, I think around 17, I was playing nationals in Nottingham, and there were a few scouts coming around, especially from America for me. And at that time, I think I had my heart set on playing, but I know that it's such a popular route that a lot of players have taken, and I think it's so clever. If you're not ready physically, or kind of you don't really know what you want to do with your career, I think it's such a smart way to go. And yeah, it's become incredibly popular over the last sort of 10 years.
Absolutely. Halsen's been mixing in some pro-level tournaments with the competitions he's competed in at uni level. First time I saw Halsen actually was at the Loughborough Challenger a couple of years ago. He had a wild card into the qualifying and won a round, so that thrilled the locals. But Matusevich might be more familiar to the general observer. He has been a bit of a face on the junior scene in recent times. I know he reached the quarterfinals at the Wimbledon Juniors event last year. You've come across Matusevich before, haven't you?
I did actually commentate on an event he played in last summer, one of the lead-up events to the grass, and it was just across the road at the Roehampton Club. It was just an exhibition event. It was a fast 4 format. I believe he played Evan Hoyt in the match that I commentated on. So
that's a good memory.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm normally not very good at that stuff, but yeah, it was interesting seeing him play. I've obviously seen him train here quite a few times, but that was the first time I'd actually seen him on a match court. And you know, he's obviously got an impressive forehand. He's a strong guy and got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, I've come across him time to time on the ITF circuit. Emily McGuinness in the chair for this one. No lines umpires, just the chair umpire here as we look to minimise the people present with the coronavirus situation. And they've had a hard job on their hands today. There have been some really close line calls. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes or their chair even.
No, me neither. I know I've definitely given umpires enough grief over the years, so I don't envy their job.
Matusevich was looking to get a lot of tennis in, it seemed, at the beginning of this year. He managed to fit, I think, 5 events into his calendar before coronavirus halted proceedings 2 or 3 months in. So he has some match wins under his belt. He also played here last week at the British Tour and had a really close loss to Jonathan Gray. That was 10-8 in the match tiebreak, so it doesn't come much closer than that. And that will probably benefit him because you know, he'll have had a bit of time to get the rust out of his system. Like we say, you know, these players are just coming back. And just because they're pro tennis players, it doesn't mean that that's easy. I remember talking to someone the other week who's just been playing an exhibition tournament, and they said, my shoulder hurts, my hip hurts, my leg hurts, everything hurts. It's very much the case, isn't it?
Absolutely. You kind of don't realise that you have sort of practice fitness, but then you also have match fitness, which, you know, there's nothing you can do to train for. So, you know, I remember when I've had, especially coming back from off-season, you think, I'm in the best shape that I've ever been in, but as soon as you go out onto the match court, you feel like, God, my back hurts, or my knee twinges, or something. You know, it's not quite the same, and you probably push your body even more without even realising it when you are on the match court. So I think these guys will just be happy to get back on the court, but also just build up that match fitness, that match tightness as well, which is something that, again, you can't practice for.
Absolutely. The competition does take it to another level, and I guess a lot of athletes over time develop this like competitive instinct, so it's not something that you can practice for, because practice is practice and a match is a match, and mentally it's just a completely different scenario and situation. So it's great for all the players to have the opportunity here this week, and indeed over these coming weeks as well, to have the opportunity to compete in the British Tour and get that much needed match practice as we wait for the official tours to resume. How's the ball travelling indoors? Much different?
Much nicer and less wonky with the wind. So I think, you know, these guys they've practiced plenty of times outside, inside, so they're used to either conditions, but obviously it's always nice to play indoors. I was a fan of the indoors. I was never a fan of the wind, but I was a little bit of a prima donna. So, but no, these guys will be fine on either outdoor or indoors.
A nice bit of self-awareness there. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have been knocking up quite a bit indoors as well. I noticed a lot of players out on the practice courts this morning. Great facilities here, and so much opportunity for the players to get that practice in. And looks like it's George Halsen stepping up to start this match serving. And that is one issue, the balls can get lost in the curtains.
What are our thoughts on his outfit today? Do they look like pyjamas or not? Because I wasn't sure whether to say anything, but they do look suspiciously pyjama-like.
I'll say it's interesting and probably stop there.
Maybe I'm being mean. He pulls it off.
Oh! Did we just open this match on a dead net cord return? I think we did.
Yes, we did.
Right, this means this is going to be dramatic. It's a sign. I think that was his response to your criticism of his outfit. Take that, Anna Smith.
I did say I liked them, to be fair.
Okay, I'll give you it.
Begrudgingly.
Got a big serve on him, Halsen. I think he rates that as one of the better aspects of his game.
I think that's such a huge part of men's tennis at the moment. It's crucial to have a big serve. You kind of see all of the top guys, and there's not really many of them that don't have a big serve and can get many free points off of it.
Well, maybe they're just hitting big, but it does look like that ball is travelling pretty quickly early on.
Yeah, I've seen Anton. I think he was practicing yesterday. I saw him, and he's hitting a pretty big ball. So I wouldn't want to be George Halsen having to return that.
Nice move in.
It's been another thing we've seen today a little bit more. You know, it's been nice to actually see people coming forward and actually using their net game a little bit, because most of the time it's just baseline slugs, and so I like seeing a bit of net game. I know I'm a bit biased being a doubles player and all, but I think it's something that's underutilized in the game.
It mixes things up a bit. And there's another bomb of a serve to close the opening hold. 2 aces in that game.
It's always good to get that first game under your belt.
It makes sense to come in as much as possible. I mean, the game over the past few years has become so much a baseliner's game, and there are only going to be a select few players that can thrive at the top with that game style. I guess you're always going to come up against someone who's better at it than you. And even if you're not naturally a serve and volleyer, you need to be able to build up your repertoire so you have those different options for when it's not your day at the baseline.
I think Nadal's a prime example of that. You know, you see him from a sort of 18-year-old kid, and you know, he was standing 10 feet behind the baseline, just happy to rip forehands and backhands, but now he's become one of the most accomplished volleyers in the world, and the percentage of points he wins at the nets is phenomenal. So, you know, if someone like that can do it and show the progression they can make, I think people need to follow suit. And even Federer and Djokovic as well, they've been so good with using their net game and so smart with it. They don't have to come in every point, but they pick and choose so cleverly when they do.
Aggressive stuff early on.
There's that big forehand we were talking about. He has an interesting grip. It's a lot flatter than a lot of the other guys, but he can generate a hell of a lot of pace on that.
Particularly in indoor conditions as well, it must be a nightmare to return.
Yeah, thankfully I haven't had to do it.
Well, 3 huge serves in that game.
Very quick hold.
Bit of a taster. This is what you've got to deal with. What are you going to do?
Hopefully a little bit better than he did in that first game. But I think he's just warming up.
Exactly. You see there, it's not all about the pace of the serve, it's the style of the serve as well, where you're placing it. That one went straight to the body. Very effective.
I think a lot of the time it's about not being predictable. Did Anton get hit by the ball?
If he did, I missed it.
I think it was might have been in an uncomfortable region.
That's a 1-2 punch. Great connection. I mean, the 2 matches I did earlier today, very few 1-2 punches that actually finished the point, because the opponents were doing a really good job of scrambling and just making the opponent play that extra ball.
I think guys nowadays have such incredible movement and they're so athletic. I mean, you look at Anton and, you know, he's just a physical specimen and he covers the court so well. And we saw in that previous match with Cam as well, there were hardly any balls that were getting past him. It was you had to hit an incredible shot to even hit a winner. So, you know, I think they have to play a little bit smarter these days and realise that it's going to take 4, 5, 6, 7 shots to win the point.
Just look, when it looked like we were on our way to another love hold. Great return from Matusevich right on the baseline. The depth just taking time away from Halsen. I'd say the first two shots of a rally are the most important, and there you could see why, because it was a great wide serve from Halsen, but the return came back so quickly that he didn't quite have the pace on his next shot, and Matusevich was straight back into the rally, so you've really got to back up that serve.
It's so hard in the men's game, especially if you hit one shot that's not good enough, the guys are straight on it. You know, there's no leeway at all.
It wasn't as straightforward as it looked like it was going to be, but still another hold of serve on the board, and going with serve at the beginning of this final match of the day on the main court. And the winner of this clash will face the winner of the clash that I believe is underway now, or will be underway shortly, between Sean Hodkin and Jack Pennington Jones, who's a wild card at this event. All players that actually will probably be quite familiar with each other's games. I think these guys tend to cross paths a lot at ITF events, particularly in GB, and therefore get to know each other quite well.
I do believe that Anton and Jack, I think they train at JTC as well, so I'm sure they've spent a lot of time hitting together and know each other's games, so yeah, that'll be interesting to see the inter-club battle.
Saw Halsen slice the return in there, and the pace at which Matusevich's serve is coming down, maybe he doesn't have much of a choice, but it's probably still a good option to slice deep and kind of slow the pace a bit and give himself time to recover.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's quite smart to just get yourself back in the rally, because, you know, as much as you want to be aggressive on that return, he's hitting such big first serves that the most important thing is just to get himself back in the rally and try and get back on level footing. And if, you know, he's needing to do a slice to do that, I think it's a really smart play, especially in these early stages when you're, you know, struggling with a little bit of rhythm and just trying to find your feet in the match. It worked effectively there,
yeah,
though,
exactly.
didn't he? Following your advice.
It proves how good it can be, because then Matusevich obviously wants to attack, and he's almost got a bit too much time to think there, so the chances of him mistiming are greater.
He's also got to generate his own pace, because he's not getting as much pace on that backhand slice. That's what he should have done on the previous point, but corrected himself very well.
And great positioning. But that closes that door.
I think George thought it might have been out.
Ooh. I'm not sure.
There was a long look at the umpire, and I think Anton was a bit confused as to what was going on as well, but another good hold.
Quite a few younger players in action today. We've got Matusevich, teenager, Paul Jubb, who played earlier, is 20, Halsen's 21.
AD's 20 as well.
Today, yep. And then Max Basing, who not many had heard of before he gave Jubb the runaround earlier today, just 17. Same age as our two champions from week 1, Arthur Ferry and Emma Raducanu. Future's bright. That's his second. It's only the 5th game of the match.
I'm sure he'd rather save those for a break point or a set point, but he'll take them, no doubt.
The right shot, just didn't quite have the height.
Smart return from Anton as well, giving him no angles to work with, so big down the middle is always a good ploy.
How much does it get in your head when your opponent hits a dead net cord? Does it depend at the stage in the match?
Yeah, I always found that it annoyed me a lot more when it was a big point or 15-30 break point or whatever. You know, if it's the first point of the game, you've got time to come back, but I've had times where it's been set point, break point, and you've had that dead net cord and you're just thinking, really? Has that happened?
Double break point here. Backhand and forehand into the net on the last couple of points from Halsen. Clearly not happy with himself. Well, he just seizes his moment, doesn't he, Matusevich? Much how he was straight up there when he saw Houghton on the stretch.
It's good to see the way he was looking for it after that forehand. You know, even if George got it back deep, he was still ready and could move back, but saw that he was going to get a slice out and rush forward to the net and had an easier volley.
Well, there's the first break of this encounter, and Matusevich playing like a man on a mission in those last couple of points, but Halsen did open the door a little bit with those back-to-back unforced errors, and you could see that he felt it himself, and with the level that Matusevich has brought out so early on, it wasn't a gift he could afford to be presenting this early in the match.
No, with the level of intensity that Anton's showing as well, you can see how pumped he is. Even after that first hold, you know, he was, you know, getting the fist pump out. So, you know, he's not going to let anything slide in here. And if George is off by 5%, then Anton's going to take full advantage of it.
You can see him trying to attack there, but just overhit a little bit on the backhand. Well, still early in this first set. What does Halsen do here? Does he stick with what he's doing and try and be a bit cleaner, or is he already going to have to go through some more options?
To be honest, I actually think he just needs to try and do what he's been doing, but just execute a little bit better. Obviously, in those first couple of games, it showed that a pretty good hold in the first game, and then took him close in the second game, but it just feels like he's just been a little bit more erratic. He's trying to go for the right shots, but execution has just been poor. So again, there you kind of see he's trying to do the right thing, take that backhand on, but pulling up off the shot, not quite hitting it off the middle of the racket. He just needs to try and find his rhythm a little bit more, because otherwise Anton's moving and not giving him many free points.
Hitting the shot over the net requires complete focus from beginning of the swing, to the end, and so many parts of the body involved that you can't be pulling out of your shot too early. It can make all the difference.
I think the thing that I've realised over the years is that you have to commit to that shot in that moment and can't think about the next shot or the previous shot. You just have to really, everything goes into that one shot, and then you can think about the next shot after. But if you don't, then like we saw on that previous point, the head's going to come up, you're worrying about recovering, things like that, and you don't execute.
I don't think the general observer really realizes that something as simple as not keeping your head still could actually totally affect the outcome of your shot, because it requires absolute balance and commitment from the beginning of the shot right through to the end of it. And a really good point there. I remember, I think when I was learning to serve, they said treat it as if it's the only shot you're going to hit, because it might be,
Yeah, but it's exactly the same with ground strokes as well. I think you saw in the last two backhands that George hit, that I don't know if people noticed, but the head kind of popped up. So if you haven't got eyes on the ball when you're contacting it, there's a chance that it could go anywhere, and that's what it proved. He sort of shanked one cross court and then shanked one down the line, and it's so important to keep your eyes on the ball and keep that head over it.
Accuracy down the tee. There's so much to remember in tennis, physically, mentally, and in the heat of competition. When you're in the middle of a match, you're not going to remember everything every time. It's not a case of I've learnt it once and I know it for life. Different competitive situations are going to have an impact.
Yeah, I think that's when the hours and hours of practice come into play, and that's where the muscle memory comes in. But yeah, you just because you do it once, it doesn't mean you've quite got the hang of things. So, but that's a typical, or a prime example rather, of a forehand where he's keeping his head over the ball, and you can just see how much more effective it is, and that's something I think that George can do. But he's replied well there with a big serve down the tee.
It's one heck of a return winner before. Really well handled on the volley. It came down low. Had to scoop it up. But then you can see Halsen stood inside the baseline. He's been dragged in a bit and hasn't recovered for the follow-up shot. So he was left stranded a bit there.
Yeah, a little bit in no man's land, and there wasn't really much he could do. Anton was fully in control, and he's done well to get it back to Juice. And is it advantage? Anton has scoreboard stuck on Juice. Oh, 40-30.
It's been a long day.
I was getting ahead of myself. Either that or I had a sixth sense. I'm not sure which one it is.
When the serve hasn't been tremendously big, these have been good returns from Matusevich, a good mix of those big ones like the return winner up the line, but that one, straight to the feet of Halsen, and meaning it was a very difficult pickup.
But it's such a smart play though, because you're giving yourself such big margins, and you're taking away the angles of the court.
This would be a big hold for Halsen. You could sense from Matusevich's body language, the fist pumps, that he feels this would be the final nail in the coffin of the set if he can get the double break here.
Yeah, I think he'll be a little bit frustrated if he doesn't. I think he'll be disappointed that he missed that backhand. It was just a solid rally ball, but he would have felt he had a chance to break here.
Really swung everything into that return and then was ready to capitalize when the response came back. Great placement.
Amazing intensity up to that ball. You can see how focused he was and just kept his body weight going through, and how much he enjoyed that shot with the fist pump at the end.
Response.
Perfect serve there. See if he can do this on the outside now.
Well, be interesting to see how Matusevich responds to this situation, because his intensity and energy levels there suggested that he thought he could get that game and be an inch from taking the set. So there'll be a bit of a disappointment despite the fact he still leads on the scoreboard.
Maybe a touch of disappointment, but I think that the fact that he's getting so close in each of these service games is going to be a real positive for him, and I think he's holding his service games fairly comfortably, so he knows that he's always got that to fall back onto, and the fact that he's taking George so deep in those service games is a real positive for him.
If Halsen can get his first serve percentage up, I really feel like this set could get much closer. Both of them are hitting big. Halsen's actually hit more aces. He has 5 to Matusevich's 1, but Matusevich with 71% of first serves landed so far, and Halsen just at 58%. So if he can get that number up a fraction, then he puts some more pressure on his opponent. But right now, he's got to look at breaking back, because he does trail by the break. And that's what he needs to keep doing, that deep slice return.
It's been so effective, hasn't it? Just using that pace from Anton's serve and just putting it back deep in the court and getting himself back into the point.
His forehands are so committed, and that down the line shot, I couldn't see Halsen on our screen, but I knew that ball wasn't coming back because it was so firmly driven. Pushed him far back in the court.
I think that was the fine line between the slice return you were talking about. The previous point, you know, it was probably 5 feet closer to the baseline, but when he doesn't quite connect with it, it gives him a ball in the middle of the court that he can just rip his forehand on. And
sure,
you know, that's kind of the difference at the moment. Those slice returns have not been deep enough, consistently enough.
Halsen anticipated the serve, but it was so wide, it was going to be a difficult job to recover, ready for the next ball. Too much pressure from the opposite side of the net.
It was interesting on that one. It looked like he was running back to hit it, whereas in previous games he'd been trying to be more aggressive. So I think he's trying to maybe change his mindset a little bit and not give away too many free errors.
That is great stuff.
Not much you can do about that, is there?
Sheer firepower. And if there were any questions before, he just answered them. One game away from this opening set. And I think you'd say with these two, very similar level potentially, but Matusevich did play here last week. He has had the match practice that maybe Halsen's lacking. He hasn't played since he left uni in a competitive atmosphere. It's been a long few months, a very different few months for the players.
You do just get the sense in, the similar serving wise, but on that forehand there's just a slight difference in firepower. Anton can really crank it up a couple of levels, and you feel like George hasn't quite got the same firepower, and that's what I feel has been the difference between them in the first set.
It's definitely made a deficit. Matusevich seems pretty confident of taking this set, but Halsen, I think for him it's important here to hold his serve so that if Matusevich does get this set, he's serving it out, and Halsen has the opportunity to serve to open the second set.
Yeah, I think Anton's going to be really trying to win this game. Like you said, if he can win this game, he's opening up that second set, and that's a big thing in men's tennis to get that first game on the board and really put pressure on your opponent.
Ooh.
Close call.
Very. And did well to recover. And in this kind of a match where the serves are such a big deal, that kind of call can make all the difference. And Matusevich so attacking minded, particularly off that forehand. Be looking to rip into those second serve returns. Well, we do have another changeover in this set. Halsen holds on. Great effort, because now the pressure does move to the shoulders of Matusevich, and he looks pretty set on his goal and his target at the moment, but we can wait and see whether the different mental situation of having to serve it out has any impact. If Halsen's going to break through, it has to be now.
I think Anton's pretty confident in his service games and what he's been trying to do at the moment, and again, I don't think anything's going to change. I think he's going to try and hit those big first serves and really dominate using the forehand. And it's been so successful so far. It's up to Halsen to find ways to change it. You know, I don't think Anton's going to change anything. So, you know, I'm fairly confident that he might serve. This set is going to come
Solid
back and bite me.
predictions have been few
I don't
and
know
far
why I
between
keep throwing
today.
these. I keep throwing these predictions out. I don't know why I do it to myself,
I'm sure they provide people with great entertainment.
especially when I'm wrong.
Well, here we go. Let's see if he can continue the extremely high level he's brought out so far. Matusevich serving for the set. There we go. Quickly on top of that, Halsen, when the volley came slower.
I think Anton will be a little bit frustrated here because he played so well and then just didn't do enough with that volley and gave Halsen a chance to get back into it.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, we've praised his forehand, but the cross-court backhand there from Matusevich, so flat. So
Took it so early as well.
Yeah. This is where having a bomb of a serve comes in as a great weapon, just to get some cheap points to dig yourself out of little holes.
I wouldn't know, but I can only imagine.
Quickly erased that mini opening.
And a forehand like that.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Right on top of it.
Full commitment.
It's got to be pretty demoralising to be up against that when it just rains down.
I think sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say, too good. I didn't think the return was bad at all.
And there it is again. Halsen had been pushed so far behind the baseline to deal with that, and even then struggled to make the connection. Double set points. Square in the corner. Inch perfect precision, or not.
I think he needs to change his shoelaces. I think they might have frayed or something like that.
Well, the serve was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Bringing out a new shoelace.
That was well spotted.
I think the way he slides, I think there must be some sort of
Wow.
issue. Yeah, it's completely frayed off.
Completely come off. Even the shoelaces couldn't take the strain of the performance he's been giving so far. Really intense stuff from Anton Matusevich, the number 4 seed, taking the 6-4 lead over George Halsen. And he never really looked too concerned in that opening set. He had his sights set on the prize. He knew what he wanted to do, and he executed really, really well all the way through.
You felt from the start of the match he was really switched on and had a clear game plan of what he wanted to do out there, and he executed it incredibly well. Looked to dominate a lot with that forehand, and it was so smart and so controlled as well, which is really impressive. And all that he needs to do now is just try and carry that on for the next set.
Do you take spare shoelaces onto court?
No, because I don't think I ever moved enough for my shoelaces to fray. So
Fair enough.
I wish I had needed spare shoelaces, to be fair. I'm surprised he doesn't have a spare pair of shoes, actually. I thought maybe he might have some. But maybe those are the winning shoes.
Yeah, there are some superstitions that go around. Did you have any?
Oh God.
Let us in.
No, I didn't have anything too crazy. I think I didn't walk on the lines.
Okay.
I tended to, if I'd won a point, with a certain ball, I tended to use that ball.
I think we see that one quite a bit,
Yeah.
but people might not realise it. But when the players are shuffling through and finding a particular one.
Yeah. I think Andy Murray I think that's one of his things as well.
Okay.
And then I always used to tap the net post on the change of ends with the butt of my racket. So the top of the
Wow.
net post, I just tap the racket. That would be my 3 things that I did. I can't remember if there was
Okay.
anything else. I'm sure. Oh, and also outfits. I was very superstitious with outfits. If I won in a match, I'd have to wear. I mean, obviously, I washed the outfit or had different versions of the same one, but I had to wear the same style of outfit to keep going. So
How do
those.
these things start? Can you pinpoint a moment when something would become a superstition?
No, I genuinely don't know. I think the whole line thing happened from a long time ago. The net thing, again, probably was something to do with if I was winning, I would keep doing it. Do you know what? I don't know, because I think you're so in the moment, you just end up picking up these habits that you don't even realise you do. Because half the time, I just didn't even realise I was doing it. It took someone to actually tell me, like, oh, do you keep doing that, or you don't walk on the lines? And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't notice.
It is. It's as much. I mean, people say superstitions, and they kind of don't see the point. But tennis is very mechanical, and you go through the motions, and you get in a certain headspace. And superstitions, if that's what you want to call them. It's keeping that rhythm going for you, isn't it? It's keeping you in that correct headspace. And so, I mean, we see it with Rafael Nadal. He has all sort of tics, as people call it, and they laugh at them. But actually, that's him, one of the most focused players on tour, you know, staying in the moment and looking after his mentality, which is the rock and the base of his game.
Yeah, I think for tennis players, we like routine and things that we can control. So, you know, whether it's a sweatband or, you know, walking on a line or whatever it may be, I think it just gives us something else to focus on rather than kind of, oh my God, this is a big point. So you know, we just try all different tactics, but we are a strange bunch, I think.
Here's Halsen serving to open the second set. You could see him there hitting to the Matusevich backhand, but Matusevich finds a way to get it on his forehand wing, and bang, points over.
Yeah, goodbye on that forehand. You know, it's hard to get him out of that forehand side, even if he is hitting it cross court. If he's not hitting it with incredible width, you know, he's really struggling. So he's going to have to find some way to get him out of his comfort zone of that forehand, because otherwise he's going to have, you know, nothing to hurt him with.
Aces aren't a bad idea. I think that's the 6th for Halsen this match. It's been a notable rise in aces since they moved indoors, I think.
I think the guys are able to go for it a little bit more. Obviously, when you're playing outdoors, it's probably a little bit smarter to try and have a higher percentage of first serves in the conditions, but when you're inside, these guys can really let rip on those first serves. And the ground strokes, to be fair, I think we've seen a lot more baseline winners as well since we've come indoors.
Matusevich didn't quite anticipate that one up the tee. Halsen keeping him guessing there. Pulled him off balance. That's a good finish. Great intense. And with the wide serve, immediately following up with the forehand into the open court, looking to move in. He has to finish these rallies quickly, right, before Matusevich takes it to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you saw in that point there the importance of width, you know, whether it's off a serve or a ground stroke. If you can get your opponent, you know, further into the tram lines rather than kind of hitting it through the middle, you open up so much more of the court. So he was really, you know, that the forehand down the line didn't even need to be that good because he'd got Anton so far off the court.
Did he make that, or was
No.
that just wide?
I think it was about an inch wide, but that would have been another demoralising blow for
It would have been a killer.
Horton if he'd have managed to pull that off. But good hold in that first game.
Yeah, much needed. Hopefully just allows him to settle a bit in the second set. And what we've been saying throughout the day is the scoring system could have an impact here, because up against that fierce forehand, it would look like quite the deficit for Halsen under normal circumstances. But if he wins this set, it is a 10-point match tiebreak as opposed to a full third set. So that could make a difference mentally. Just looking at those first serve percentages, Matusevich sky high there with first serves landed.
But I think even George would be fairly happy with 73%
True.
as well. I think normally you try and aim for about 70%, so you know those stats are very impressive. And it's interesting that the first serves won. George actually won more points on the first serve.
You can see that 2 of 2 break points converted by Matusevich. It's all about peaking, isn't it, in those big moments? That's the you can have even rallies, even competition, but it's about having the head for those key moments and the ability to come through.
I think also a funny stat that I've realised is that you actually don't have to win more points than your opponent. Sometimes you just have to win the important points. There's been a couple of matches that I've played where I've actually not won as many points as the opponent, but I've won the match because I've won the break points, the set points, whatever it may be. So, you know, you have to realise that you're not going to win every point. It's just having that real focus on those really important points, because they're the ones that matter.
Bit of kick on that serve, making it hard to judge the return. Well, take that gift.
I mean, you'll always take a double fault.
The thing is, he was on the previous serve when he tried to return, he was stood so far in trying to assert himself, and it just didn't work for him. He's got to feel limited on options here.
I think he's been clever in the sense that he's trying to mix up. You know, you go in with an aggressive mindset, but realise that, do you know what, maybe it's not working today. Again, he tried to be a little bit more aggressive there, but you have to be able to have that variation and that variety and the clear thought of when things aren't going well. Do you know what, this isn't quite working as I planned, I'm going to have to change something up here. So it's been nice to see him returning from different positions to try and throw Anton off his game.
Oh, clean down the line. Great connection, but it has to be reproduced.
We could barely see him in the camera. All we saw was his racket. Great second serve.
Again, so accurate, and struggles there to anticipate which way he's going, because Matusevich himself is mixing up these serves in terms of direction. Don't think there's one that he's particularly leaning towards at the moment.
I think it's also pretty tricky when he's been able to hit the wide serve and the tee serve off the same ball toss. You're kind of having to just take a guess at it, really.
was a good pickup, and you could see straight after he got it back, he moved back behind the baseline just to give himself a bit more time should that forehand have come over. Maybe Matusevich saw that out of the corner of his eye.
Yeah, potentially. I just think it was a poorly executed approach shot. I think he just sort of was so keen to get into the net that he didn't really finish the approach shot, but he'll be a little bit frustrated there. There could have been a chance to get to love 30. Instead, now it's 30-15, and he really needs to get back in a focus. I think he'd really love to break here. That's definitely not a fault.
I was thinking that looked pretty solid.
I was going to say that was bang on the line, wasn't it? But it's just little things like that, especially when you don't have Hawkeye, that can change the context of a game. Instead of being 40-15 up, it's 30 all, and Anton has a bit of a sniff here.
Exactly, and particularly, the cheap points are so much needed for Halsen, and so difficult to get over that kind of thing. It's a mental sport. That grazed the line?
No, it was caught out, but I think George pointed a finger at it to give the umpire a little bit of an enthusiastic...
My serve was out.
Yeah, you can see he definitely held out his racket to indicate that it had gone wide, but that was a very close call.
It's a good way to close. No service game coming easy for George Halsen, but he keeps his nose out in front and gives Matusevich something to think about. And the teenager handled that pretty well in the last set, but with this format, who's to say what could change further down the line. And for those just tuning in, you are watching the LTA British Tour return to elite competition. We're in the second week of a 4-week swing of new LTA British Tour events taking place here at the National Tennis Centre in Roehampton. Lots of restrictions in place to make this as safe as possible during this period of time with coronavirus. And players, I'm sure, really appreciate this environment to compete in prior to the return to international competition. And once the tours are up and running again, it'll be to that full time for Halsen, because as we mentioned earlier, he was part of the LTA University Tennis, studying at Loughborough Uni, studied sport and exercise science, and graduated last month, so very recently. People still go across the pond to play college tennis, but university tennis in England and indeed in the UK has really taken a step up in recent years. I know that as a whole the GB team have won several international medals in recent years. Maya Lumsden as well in the women's draw, the number 2 seed. She's at the University of Stirling, so it is really a popular route at the moment.
Well, I trained at Bath as well, and they have a great university team there. I know they take it very seriously. So, and Loughborough obviously as well. They have a great team. So, I definitely think it's a growing thing. We obviously don't quite have the same system as they do over in America, but we do still have a pretty good system.
Well, that service game slips away incredibly quickly, which has got to be frustrating for Halsen after how hard he fought to hang on to his own serve. He's got to feel like he's putting so much work in to really receive little reward off it. Matusevich, meanwhile, great focus and presence in the moment to have half chances and come back. That was well controlled by Halsen. Matusevich just so great in all departments at the moment. The coverage at the back of the court, I mean, particularly on the attack, though.
Just when Halsen thinks that he's got the point in the bag, Anton comes up with an incredible defence and gets it within 2 feet of the baseline.
His favourite shot as well, the backhand down the line, came back at him.
With interest.
Not going to feel good.
Looks like Halsen's finding it hard just purely because of the depth that Anton's hitting on every ball. You know, he's hitting it sort of 2-3 feet from the baseline. It's hard to get on that front foot, which he obviously is trying to do, but when you're getting that depth coming at you, it's tricky. Interesting to see him miss that. He's looked really confident when he's come into the forecourt throughout this match. It kept so low though, and it's tough with his forehand grip. It's very sort of, it's almost more like a volley grip the way he hits it, so it is tough to get under it, especially when it stays that low. So that could be something that Houghton uses, try and chisel on that backhand slice a little bit more to his forehand.
Well, another game where it looks like Matusevich had a great chance to break through, but Halsen holds on, credit to him, and still going with serve in the second set. And if this keeps happening, it begins to get quite interesting, because even if he is just holding serve, we reach the back end of the set, and then it will be a 10-point tiebreak shootout if we go to a decider, so it changes the whole complexion of the match.
It's where the frustration builds for Anton a little bit here, because he's getting a look in every game. He's getting close, and it's whether he can deal with that frustration and not breaking as the set progresses, because he'll probably feel like, you know, he should be serving for the set, or he at least should be a break up. So, you know, I think obviously at the moment it's still 3-2. You know, gets it back to 3-3 here. Has potential again to break, but yeah, as the set goes on, if he doesn't break, the frustration will come, and it's how he deals with that.
And that is a great test for him, because that is so much a deciding factor on the main tour. I mean, we can see clear talented elements of his game, particularly the forehand here. The serve will take him far, but he has to have that mentality to go with it, and this kind of situation is something he's going to come up against quite a bit when he reaches ATP level.
Definitely, you see players in the futures, the challengers, and obviously on the main tour there's not really too much difference in the way they actually hit the ball, but most of it is mentally how they're able to deal with situations and maintain their level. So Anton hits it as well as probably anyone in the top 100, but it's how he deals with those situations and those setbacks that's going to differentiate whether he makes it or not.
That was a great opening to the game. Back in the driver's seat with the forehand. Again, mixing up that serve, and great placement on the wide serve to stretch Halsen out.
Looks like Halsen's gone back to the attempting to be aggressive off that second serve return, and it's just not quite paying off. You almost think he'd be better off going, a couple of feet behind that baseline and getting a real good hit on it, but it's obviously tough to do that when Anton's hitting absolute rockets down the tee.
Such as that one. Gets back level, and it's quite impressive how he's just routinely going through these service games, and he knows the real business is in the return game and trying to get that breakthrough, and he hasn't let the fact that he hasn't broken through yet put him off. He's got real focus out here, which is good to see.
Yeah, he's going about his business in his service game so well, so clinically, but it's these return games that he's really trying to put his effort into, but he keeps getting close, and if you keep knocking at that door, the cumulative pressure that you keep putting on your opponent is going to pay off eventually, and if it doesn't, it obviously means he's dealt with it well, but you do feel that he's going to get opportunities, whether it's in this game or the next game. He just has to try and keep patient, which is obviously easier said than done in this situation, but it will pay off in the end.
And that's the kind of error he really doesn't have the breathing space to make here, because that was on his racket, he was lined up for it, and it was his own poor execution that cost him there. Wasn't forced into that mistake.
But I think, again, that was probably a culmination of the pressure that Anton's been putting on him. If he'd have won these service games fairly comfortably, you would probably feel a little less pressure. But the fact that every game has virtually gone to juice, he's feeling like, oh, do you know what, I've got to hit a little bit closer to the line, a little bit lower over the net. So it's probably more down to Anton, but as you can see, Anton's pretty frustrated that he's missed that forehand.
This game will take us into the business end of the set, so if Halsen can just get across the line here, this might be where we start to see frustrations fraying. It's a very dangerous place to be on the back foot against Anton Matusevich. Very few opportunities to turn that back around, however far behind the baseline you stand.
Another show of that brute force that he possesses on that forehand side, just bludgeons the ball cross court and then back down the line.
That ball is just flying now. You could see the pace accelerating with that rally.
And each one trying to out-hit the other, and the pace is just increasing, ball after ball, and Anton came out on the right side of that.
Key moment for it as well. Here is the opportunity he's been sniffing at. Break point. Well, he just launched himself into that one down the line, didn't he? Right on top of it. And his intensity and his continued focus has finally paid off, as indeed you said it would. Here's the set and the double break lead for the number 4 seed. Is there any way back from here?
There's always a way back. Whether he's going to do it or not is another matter. But, you know, I think he just has to try and find ways in Anton's service games to just find to do something different. I think he's played around with a few different tactics and it hasn't quite paid off yet. I think in this game I'd be a fan of making Anton play as many balls as he possibly can, whether that means chipping a few returns back or standing a little bit further back on the second serve and just kind of ripping a ground stroke back down the middle. But, you know, when you do get close to the end of a match, obviously, you know, nerves do play a part. So you want to make your opponent play as many balls as possible. Don't want to give them any free points. So I think, yeah, in this game I would try and just make Anton play as many points and make him win the game.
See if we can make him think then. Matusevich serving. Did that scorch the line, or was it just wide?
No, I think it clipped the line. It's what he's having to do to win points.
It's not a wonder it's his favourite shot. It's not the first of those that he's nailed today, and we'll be hoping it's not the last. Well, he'd stepped in to get on top of that return, but too much recovery time needed. And I think Matusevich could see him taking his time to recover to the middle of the baseline. Caught him off balance.
I thought it actually wasn't such a bad return. I know he didn't probably hit it as cleanly as he wanted to, but Anton was on the stretch on that forehand and hit a screaming winner down the line. And again, the whole focus of the game has changed from potentially love 30 to now 30-15 up.
I get the feeling Matusevich would like it to rain all week so they can play indoors, because it's definitely suiting his game. I mean, once he finds the sweet spot and rips through that ball, very little anyone can do about it.
I think unfortunately for him the weather forecast is picking up a little bit tomorrow and over the weekend, but
too good.
That was an interesting volley. There's a lot of swing on that. I'm not sure it quite came out of the middle of the racket, but it went over and went for a winner, so that's all he'll care about.
When you're playing as well as he's playing now, do you go into a sort of zone where it's more instinct than really thinking through your shots?
Absolutely, yeah. You kind of go in this mode where you don't really think about what's going on, and you do play very instinctively, and you do feel that kind of something's clicked for him a little bit, and he knows exactly what he wants to do out there, and he's got a very clear plan.
Well, it is Halsen serving to stay in the match here, and whoever comes through this one will be up against the wildcard Jack Pennington Jones, who had a pretty dominant 6-love, 6-2 victory over Sean Hodkin. Not quite sure what happened there. I think he's just going for these serves now. You know, it's late days, and one of the things he has managed to do well today is get some cheap points off those serves, so might as well rip through them. Too good right now. Far too good.
Another one of those bludgeoning forehands that you have absolutely no idea where it's going.
Took that one so low as well.
Just keeps his head over the ball so nicely and his body weight going through the ball.
2 points away.
I think he's looking questioningly at his coach, wondering, why did I miss that backhand?
Not enough to throw him out of the zone just yet, but maybe one more twist in the tail if he has to serve for it. That's the sort of thing that he was nailing there at the beginning of this match. But as you said, Matusevich, the way he's covered this court and the way he's attacked everything has got inside Halsen's head and made him feel like he has to go for that bit more. And daylight may be fading, it's match point. And it's curtains. An absolutely fantastic performance from Anton Matusevich, the number 4 seed, who is ranked just outside the top 500 at present, but if he can produce that kind of form on a regular basis, he should be soaring up those rankings. Great opportunity for him to showcase today against George Halsen in his first match back. And Matusevich took that really close loss here at the British Tour last week, 10-8 in the match tiebreak against Jonathan Gray. He'll be glad to come out on the right side of this one. There were some tight moments in there, and I think the key was his focus in order to come through those and keep believing in his ability and indeed in his ferocious forehand.
I think the thing that stood out for me was really the intensity from the first point. He had a really clear game style of what he wanted to bring to the court, and he never let up. You know, he kept ripping that forehand, kept hitting those big serves, and I think that was the thing that stood out for me the most, and that eventually was the deciding factor between the two of them.
Well, a really impressive performance from the number 4 seed. You can see the final match stats there, really high percentage of first serves landed, and then didn't allow Halsen a single break point opportunity, which just shows how businesslike he was in rattling through those holds. Even in the second set when he was coming from behind, having missed opportunities, deeply impressive, and a pretty clean 4 out of 5 break points won. So that's a performance he can be proud of. We've seen 4 seeds in action today. I think each of them will have taken something away that they can work on, but Cameron Norrie and Anton Matusevich have really sailed through pretty much indoors, and we'll be looking forward even to seeing them again in the quarter-finals. Which brings us to the end of coverage for the day. It's been jam-packed, wrapped up indoors, but weather permitting, we'll be back outside for the continuation of the British Tour, the quarter-finals of the men's events and the beginning of the women's singles events. We'll be back with that tomorrow. See you then.
That's a paradigm.